Welcome to Talking Synths, episode 41. And today we're going to talk about the thing in the showroom that most people gravitate toward after hours.
Well, I think before that, we should probably introduce ourselves.
All right. This is Carlos.
This is Sam.
We're from Syntaur, synthology.com, the place to get your keyboard parts and keyboards. Mm-hmm. And so, end of the day, sometimes people are winding down. We have a whole showroom full of synthesizers, but it often boils down to on the Rhodes again. Just can't wait to get on that Rhodes again.
Probably one of my favorite sounds in general. You know, there's really nothing quite like it.
Fender Rhodes electric piano, iconic. Yeah.
And I think we were having this conversation the other day too. You know, there's a lot of people rag on VSTs and emulations, and it's not the same thing. And I can understand that and respect that. But there's nothing like it when someone comes into the showroom and they say, "Is that a real Rhodes?"
Yeah.
I've never played on one before.
Really?
And you know, they're like, "Oh, I'm familiar with the Arturia VST or whatever electric piano, you know, they might have in their DAW." And I'm like, "You're in for a treat."
Yeah.
And we, for the most part, you know, it's usually turned on, and we like to encourage people to play on whatever's in the showroom.
Sure. And right now, I guess we have two of them here. Mm-hmm. And both of them are the Suitcase models, which is my favorite. This is a 73-note Rhodes Mark 1. Is that it? Is this a Mark 1? I don't know my Rhodes chronology well enough. Mm-hmm. But it's the Suitcase model so it has a speaker cabinet underneath. It's got two 12-inch speakers side by side, and so it's got built-in speakers. You can play it, unlike the stage model, which just has legs, and then you have to hook it up to an amplifier. So this one has a built-in amplifier, built-in speakers, and it's got the really cool little switch on here for vibrato, which is really stereo tremolo, just kind of pans between one speaker and the other, and it's cool. But the sound itself is iconic. Everybody knows it. And the cool thing about playing real Rhodes is you can play it soft and bell-like, or you can also play it hard and you can dig in and you can get that distorty kind of sound. You can even hear the tines wangling around in there when you play it hard. You know, you can really dig in and get those grungy, crazy sounds in there. So you can play it very expressively, and it's just a joy to play.
So that's interesting. So it's a 212 cab. I had thought it was a 412 cab, but I've never really looked inside of it. I feel like here at the shop, I'm always learning something new every day.
I hope I'm not spreading disinformation. Yeah. It's been 100 years since I've been inside one of these cabinets, but as I recall, it's 212s.
That's pretty neat. And the tremolo, it's like an incandescent light bulb, isn't it? That turns on and off.
It's got an LED that turns on. I don't know really how it works electronically speaking, but let me demonstrate it. So here's just the straight sound, and then we'll turn that vibrato on. Then you can hear it. You can change the speed real fast, or you can get a real slow sweep. It's just so pretty.
Yeah, you can almost get into that ring mod territory with it turned all the way up with both the intensity and the speed.
Well, let's see. You can certainly get crazy with it. Yeah.
And then I just love the fact that they included an effects loop on the front panel, because that totally opens up the palette as far as, you know, just being able to plug in different sounds and textures.
Yeah.
And,
put a phaser in there and play Billy Joel's "Just the Way You Were, Just the Way You Are." Yeah, a lot of everything about it is cool. And so I thought it'd be a nice thing to bring out and talk about today because there's so many of them out there. Lots of people do have them. I'm surprised at the number of people that don't know how to tune them, for instance, and that sort of thing, because they are easy to tune and they're easy to adjust as far as the tone and that sort of thing. So I know you've worked on a few of them in the last year or so, and thought it'd be cool to dig in and see how the Rhodes works and how to tweak it up when you need to.
Yeah.
So the way it makes sound, this is the shortest note of the Rhodes, and this is a tine, and let's see, this is I think you call this a tone bar, and this is screwed onto the chassis. And when you play a note, just like a real piano, a hammer comes up and it hits this tine, and that starts vibrating. And Nick was just pointing out that this whole setup is a tuning fork, basically. And so it's resonating, and it's basically resonating in a sine wave pattern. But when you first attack it, you get you get some weirdness, and you get the you get a different waveform until it settles down into that pure kind of sine wave. And on this tine, it's just a metal bar, and again, this one is really short, so it's kind of a little hard to show on, but the long notes, the lowest notes are about 8 inches long or so, and they all have this little coiled spring on the wire of the tine, and that spring is sort of a weight. And to tune the Rhodes, you just get a little screwdriver or something and scoot that spring either farther onto the tine or a little bit farther out from it. You scoot it farther out, that makes the note go a little flatter. You scoot it in, it makes the note go a little sharper. So it's real easy to do, and you all it takes is a screwdriver and a tuner or a good ear or something. And
Yeah.
you've done that a lot, right?
I've done it. I've done it a little bit. I've done it some.
Yeah.
Gerald and Nick more so than I.
Okay.
And then I remember one of the last arguments Gerald and I had was over a Rhodes, and it had so many dead notes. And so there's a couple of different things to be on the lookout when it comes to dead notes. And what I had noticed was on this little pickup, and you can see this one's labeled bad, but these era of Rhodes pickups with this white wrap tend to be more prone or susceptible to corrosion. And so what happened is, there's kind of like a common ground that runs across, they're kind of daisy chained together, and you could see the green corrosion, and it had eaten through, and so there was no continuity.
Yeah. Okay, and so let's back up just a second, and I'll take this and I'm going to hold it up to this tone bar. So sorry, you people on Spotify and iTunes, you can't see this, but the pickup, it's basically like a guitar pickup, right?
Yeah.
And so you have this that's mounted inside the cabinet, and the end of the pickup is right at the end of the tone bar. And so that tone bar starts vibrating, the pickup picks it up, and that's how it works. Kind of similar to a guitar string and a guitar pickup. And so, what was the argument that you and Gerald had?
Well, he was saying that I think that it just needed to be adjusted.
Okay.
As far as you can kind of control the volume a little bit, as far as adjusting the distance between the two. But I think it was just, maybe his eyes, he got a little bit up in age and his eyes weren't as good as mine. And I was like, no, dude, that's definitely corroded. And he just refused to believe me. And then eventually, that's what it was. It was the corrosion.
Yeah.
But they are fairly simple machines, you know. They're really efficient at what they do, and they sound great.
Yeah. And so here's 3 of the pickups of a different nature with the red coils, and you can see these are connected together by the common wire. And so to get into a Rhodes is real easy. You just move all your stuff from the top of it, and then you
Lift the lid.
pop the lid, pop the hood, and there it is. And so you see all the tone bars here. Some of them are about a foot long. And then the tines underneath, all the pickups up here. And yeah, each of these pickups has a screw in it. And like you were saying, you can scoot that in or out. You can scoot it closer to the tine or farther away, and that gives the volume. You can even out the action, because if you have one note that's really loud or one note that's really soft, you can scoot that pickup closer or farther. And then in the back of each of these tone bars, you have two screws that go through. They have springs and rubber grommets in there, and you can use those two screws to adjust the angle, as it were,
the angle
or
of the
height.
dangle.
Yeah. You can just use them to adjust the way that tine points, and that adjusts the tone that you hear. You know, you can get a real sharp tone with it, or the way I like it is to get a real mellow bell-like tone, and that's you can go through and adjust it to taste, or it's good to know that so that you can adjust it to even out the keyboard action.
And the one thing I've noticed too, because we've had several different models of Rhodes come in, but sometimes you'll notice the hammers, the rubber on them is different colors.
Right.
And from what I've heard, that was kind of like an aftermarket kit that you could put on there, and the rubber hammer or the mallets were different densities. They're supposed to give it different tonal qualities across the length of the key bed.
Right. I don't think that was necessarily aftermarket. I think that's the way they did it in different models. Oh, and this is a good place to point out that if you are working on a Rhodes and you need some parts, we always say Synthar.com is a place to go for keyboard parts. Well, for Rhodes parts and Wurlitzer parts and other electromechanical pianos, we're going to say, well, even on Synthar.com, we divert people over to the real place to get this kind of stuff, and that's VintageVibe.com. That's a shop up in New Jersey, and they specialize in electromechanical pianos. And Chris Carroll is the owner, and they have a crew there that really does crazy good
they
work.
do fantastic. And then even, I mean, if you're in the market for a Rhodes, their literature that they have on their website is great, you know, because they'll break down the different models, the differences, things to look out for, some common care tips, common mistakes, and things like that. I mean, there's been times where we've had Rhodes in the shop, and that's like the first place I go. That's where I actually had seen originally about the corrosion on the pickups. And I was like, okay, let me check that. And that's when I saw it, and I was like, oh yeah, that's what's definitely wrong with this one.
Yeah, that site is a storehouse of good information, and those guys are so good that they started building their own pianos. And they've taken like the best of the Rhodes and the best of the Wurlitzer or something, and I hadn't really explored their new stuff too much, but you can go to VintageVibe.com and you can buy a brand new electric piano made by Vintage Vibe and not have to worry about, this thing was made in 1973, and so I gotta, it's not gonna have the same issues that a classic vintage one would. I'm hearing ours crackle and pop a little bit. It reminds me of this plug here. There's a RCA plug on the back left corner of it that connects all of the pickups to the amp circuitry, and sometimes that connector there can get a little
wonky,
nasty, and it might just need to be flicked around and plugged and unplugged to make better contact. I don't know if that's what's happening with this one or not, but still needs a little work apparently. But yeah, that's another thing that can go wrong with these. And I think I can't remember how to do it, but You can take out a few screws, two screws on each end.
And then it lifts straight up.
And then the whole thing just kind of comes up. And so you can get at the hammers and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And, okay, here's another problem with Rhodes. I remember from way back in the day when I used to play one live, I really play heavy-handed to my detriment and to the detriment of the instruments that I'm pounding on. And that results in, and also it's not just from that, but playing a Rhodes for a long time, those rubber hammer tips can start to wear out. And so they can get a groove because they're hitting that tine the same place every time you play that note. And so it can dig a little groove into that hammer. Excuse me. And in the worst instance, I think, as I recall, I had one that was so grooved once that I hit the note and the hammer stuck on the tine because the rubber just grabbed on the tine. So, yeah, there's all kind of stuff to watch out on these and keep the action nice. And there used to be aftermarket kits. I can't think of what it was called. Dyno My Piano.
Oh yeah.
That would really put the mojo to it. And, yeah, but they're really cool. Let's move these away. And I guess we can get a close-up in a minute or while we're doing this, but we can just show some of the notes, the hammers, getting striking the tines. Okay, here's another thing. When you step on the pedal, you have this row of dampers that goes across.
For me, I think the sustain pedal is one of the most magical things about the Rhodes. It, you can go down the rabbit hole talking about sympathetic resonance and what's actually going on, but at the end of the day, it just sounds great.
Yeah, and you can really get some dreamy sounds by just holding the sustain pedal down and playing a whole bunch of notes. Let's get a little more vibrato on there. And these high notes are just crazy because there's hardly anything to vibrate there, but yeah, you can sure get lost in it and sit there and play for
hands down. But it's one of those things I go back, being a synthesizer nerd. Because a part of being a synthesizer is being able to sculpt the sound and turn all these knobs. But with the Rhodes, it really just hands you greatness. Yeah. And you don't really have to twist knobs or sculpt the sound or adjust your envelope. It's there in spades. And a Rhodes, through a tape, like an actual tape echo, I would probably, in my mind, I'm thinking, what would I spend more time on, the Quantum or Rhodes with the tape echo? And it'd be the Rhodes with the tape echo, hands down. I mean,
it's hard to go wrong with it.
Especially if you have a tape echo that has the sound on sound capabilities, where you get that really cool degraded looping, but it's like warm and fuzzy at the same time. There's nothing like it. And if you're someone that's into synthesis or you're just getting into synthesizers, don't discount an electromechanical device. And if you have a chance, go try it out.
Yeah.
Go get your hands on the Rhodes and just see what all the hubbub's about.
Yeah, it's a natural fit with lots of synthesizers and stuff. That's the thing about it. It's a natural fit with so much. A jazz trio with a bass, drums, and Rhodes is a great sound. Herbie Hancock doing all his stuff is like, oh wow.
And he's coming pretty soon too.
I hope we're going to be there too.
Yeah, if any of y'all know his tech, let us know, because I would love to do that interview.
Yeah.
You know, after the set.
Yeah, indeed.
Definitely a hero.
But yeah, the Rhodes just sit so well in so much. And how many hit songs has a Rhodes been used on? About a squillion.
So that's something to talk about. And I know we kind of already touched a little bit on the different models, but they even make an 88 note, huh?
Right. Yeah.
And the small little bass one as well.
Yeah, that's right. We've
kind of
had a few of those through the shop. It's like the bottom octave and a half or something of a Rhodes, just these notes here. Who's the most famous user of that?
Is it Elton John?
No, it would be Ray Manzarek of the Doors.
Oh yeah.
He'd do the bass on the little micro Rhodes. What do you call it? Rhodes bass. I can't remember I think it's just Rhodes bass, but he'd do that and then play the organ with the other hand.
You know, the one that at least to my knowledge we haven't had in the shop, but I see around every now and then. But it's the Jetson model. You know, the one it's like a formed fiberglass.
Oh yeah.
I think Gizmo had one in his garage, and it looks like just that straight Art Deco, real futuristic, different pastel colors. Yeah.
Yeah, and they did some student versions of the Rhodes, I think, right? That were, I can't remember what the specs were, but you were talking about sculpting sound, and I was going to mention that you do have treble and bass controls on it, on this model. So that's sliding the treble slider around, and then the bass. So you have a little bit of adjustment there, and then with the vibrato, and then with your effects loops, you can.
Yeah, I mean, a Rhodes through a fuzz pedal sounds fantastic, and I've even used some distortion pedals and been able to get some like searing leads. You know, if you just really crank up that gain, I think it does well with the impedance of guitar pedals, being the fact that it's basically
kind of
working.
A guitar.
Yeah, it's kind of a guitar
with just harder strings.
Yeah.
And I go sort of in the other direction of I like the chorus or the phaser on there, and that sweet, dreamy sound.
And I know I've said this a million times, but the Rhodes through the filter and the stereo delay of the Matriarch, that's another
good combo.
It's a really great combo, and so talk about scratching the itch, because then you can patch stuff and you can turn some knobs as you're playing, and you can actually make the Matriarch self-oscillate a little bit. You know, make that filter self-oscillate, and then you have the delay. You get kind of like bird chirps going on in the background as you're playing the Rhodes. It's really neat.
Yeah, well, that's cool. So I can't think of any other issues if you own a Rhodes, but any issues to address that are common. I mean, the tuning. Everyone who owns a Rhodes ought to know how to tune it, and you know, it's easy to get an app for your phone, and you can just hold it up there and tune it that way. So phone app, screwdriver, tiny little flat screwdriver just to slide that spring around on the tine, and then a Phillips screwdriver to adjust the distance of the pickup, and the same Phillips screwdriver to adjust the tone bar. And you're pretty much good to go.
Yeah.
At least those are the easy things. Replacing the hammer faces and all that is, you know, a little more tricky. But you know, if you own a Rhodes, you ought to know those easy things to do.
And you know, as we had said before, Vintage Vibe does do a really good job about making that information readily available.
Yeah, and the parts too. If you need new tines, if you need new hammers, whatever, they have all of that stuff, and it's a great place to go for it. I guess that about wraps it up, unless you got anything.
Well, just the one thing, the one little, you know, kind of tidbit that Rhodes dropped, and it's kind of one big question mark at this point, but they did announce that they would be releasing a new product. So I don't know what that entails or what that means, but I know they have a newsletter you can sign up for.
And who is Rhodes?
I don't know.
Because Harold Rhodes sold the company to Fender.
Which got bought out by CBS.
Yeah.
You have a CBS era of Rhodes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then at some point, Roland bought the rights to it, I think, because they came out with the Rhodes Model 660 and 770, I think it is, or a few different models of Rhodes keyboards that were Roland branded. And I don't know anything that happened after that with Rhodes. Yeah. But now you're saying,
well, didn't I think they did have? They put out one more electromechanical pencil Rhodes in the early 2000s. Wasn't there? There was a NAMM where they debuted, and it was supposed to be like the Rhodes revival, but then I don't think anything really became of it.
I don't know. I don't know.
I will say from the demos I've heard of, Krumar does the Mojo, and they have a physically modeled Rhodes that sounds fantastic. And
and we should mention the Yamaha Reface CP.
Yeah, the CP. I mean,
crazy good Rhodes sounds, and Wurlitzer, and toy piano, and everything else. So
there have been times where I've actually ran the CP through this speaker cabinet.
Oh, cool.
And people were just blown away. They thought it was the actual Rhodes being played.
Yeah, it sounds amazingly good.
Yeah. I would have to guess that Rhodes would more than likely be producing a digital piano of some sort. But if there's anything in the physical modeling domain, it would pique my interest. I would be interested.
Well, to me, it's interesting that Rhodes is there and saying they're going to do something, because I thought they were long gone. But welcome back if you are. So, all right, great things to come. It sounds like in the future. And meanwhile, grab your Rhodes, make some great music. And until then, we will modulate later.